Hey, what's going on, boxing fans, sports fans alike, any types of fans of anything really? But you're appreciated for being here. Of course, another Random86 collab. See what I did there? Random86. But special guest here tonight, of course, none other than the man himself, Random Acoustic Dots, holding it down, joining us, representing all the historians out there, those that are tied to it, down with it, and put in that research right there. So appreciate you being here, Random. How's it going, buddy?
Big up 86. Thanks for having me, brother. Historical enthusiast. I'm not calling myself a historian. Most of the people call themselves that. I don't know. There's something going on there. I'd rather just be passionate. Thanks for having me, brother. It's great to see you. Great to hear your wonderful voice.
Likewise. You know, I'm going to call you the historian. I know you're not going to do it yourself, but hey, I see the person in that profile picture right there, the great Sam Langford. Come on, man.
Oh, dude, the research is going great. That's the important thing. And I hate to even break myself out of that research loop to talk about this, but this actually, research is a key component to this controversy.
Oh, yes, indeed it is.
What's up, Skywalker? What's happening, brother? Yeah, this is the thing where people conflate separate issues. There's an issue of the sporting architecture, as in whether it's weight classes, glove size, someone's gender identity, or even things like natural hormone levels. There are discussions about all these things that are legitimate. They're just discussions. Those are rules committee type discussions. This was people took that and used an excuse to unleash a wave of vitriol and bigotry on the internet. And probably everyone knows roughly what happened, but it kicked off because an Italian girl had lost to her, and then afterwards she kind of went full Karen. She was saying she'd never been hit that hard. She quit after about a little bit under a minute. Said she'd never been hit that hard, insinuated there was something wrong there, and people went absolutely out of their minds. And I mean out of their minds. Like I've severed some connections this past week over this because I don't roll that way. I'm an ally. I'm not a bigot, and I don't roll with bigots, you know? And but a lot of people showed their ass over this. Can we swear on this one, 86?
Hey. Yes, of course. Sweet.
Okay, yeah, fuck that. A lot of people showed their ass. I'm not down with that. You know, saying nothing is fine, but some people, they were just looking for a reason. And they show themselves. It's the same thing that's happened with the racial dynamic. You're from the South. You're from the deep ass South, from Arkansas. So I don't have to tell you, people will find an excuse to do what, to express the evil in their heart. They don't need much of an excuse either. And this was, to me, this was a case of that. Very disappointing. Because the people in the boxing community who could look it up, even if they don't follow women's boxing, Imane Khelif, she was in the 2020 Olympics. She didn't just show up. She was already an Olympian. She didn't medal. She lost in the quarterfinals to Ireland's, let me think of the girl's name. Was it Katie Harrington?
Yes, I believe that's who
yeah, I don't follow women's boxing. I somewhat follow women's MMA, or I used to. I'm kind of drifting from MMA fandom. But anyway, yeah, it was, so she'd been there. Her story had been told. And she's from a very conservative country where, gender affirming care and things like that, that's not cool over there. It's very, very conservative. But plus she's been a woman her whole life. Like it wasn't hard to find a picture of her as a little girl. Yeah. Like it was like, I don't even call it research. It was 4 minutes, including the reading time, to get a good sense of her story, her inspiring story. And instead, she had to deal with this. And now she's filed a faint complaint with the French for online harassment. That's a criminal complaint. It's just getting serious. So a lot of these celebrities who are talking all that mess, in fact, J.K. Rowling, I don't think she's shut up for 5 days in a row since she released those damn books. And she's gone. She's not posting anything online, right? Her lawyers told her to shut the hell up.
Oh, yeah.
For once, that old bigot. I hope Imane Khelif gets a piece of that Harry Potter empire. Give that girl some money, man. People trying to ruin her life.
Oh, yeah.
Not just JK, a lot of people, including like the Boston Globe. I mean, she should be unleashing a tsunami of lawsuits on all kinds of people. And people online are calling for it. Maybe not on Facebook, where I've noticed some of the older Facebook users, they don't get their information quite as quickly. But on Twitter, man, we're having a blast joking about it. Not joking about Imane Khelif, joking about the people who are about to get hit real deep like with the lawsuits.
Oh, yeah.
You want to do your shouts? Go ahead. Do your shouts, brother.
Yeah. That is coming for sure. That is coming. Shout out to Melissa Ty dropped by. Look there to you, Melissa Ty. Always great to have you in the mix here, of course. Shout out to my man Tyrone's Boxing right there. Says shout out 86 Arkansas, my boy Rashad Ganaway. I helped train in Vegas from Little Rock. I just looked him up. That's what's up right there, Tyrone. Appreciate you dropping by here, buddy. Oh, hey, that's good stuff right there. Holding it down for Arkansas. Thank you for
how cool is that?
Yeah, right. Hey, small
That's
world.
Awesome. It is a small world. It's
sure,
a very small world.
So, yeah, I'm gonna look you up there, Tyrone. But appreciate you dropping in for sure. But yeah, real talk there dropped Random. Appreciate you saying what you're saying there, Random. And I think you shed light on a lot of things. Shout out to my man Skywalker pointed out facts. A lot of people were speaking without the actual facts on the situation. You still see some of that out there, and I've seen a lot of that from some of the channels that typically don't cover boxing, but they are jumping in on the boxing issue now. And a lot of it is taking advantage of a big story. You know, they want follow anything that they deem as a feel-good story or anything of that nature, but it's about drama in a lot of spaces. And hey, that's something that we have to deal with here in this world and age of social media, where a lot more voices can be out there spoken and lifted, essentially. So yeah, and shout out to everyone in here again. 86 Boxing, Random Acoustic Thoughts collaboration right here, Random86, and we're speaking on the Imane Khelif situation. And yeah, there was a lot of misinformation that was floating out there online in relation to her gender, and a lot of big news stations, or I guess you can call them that, and other platforms took hold of such, and they hadn't really researched any of the situation or the
worse, they were just amplifying Russian propaganda
or that
to undercut the games. Because I mean, the Daily Mail, which is absolute trash. That was the first place I saw it, or that was the first place I saw people referencing the whole weirdo circuit picked up on it. But that might have been where it started. We can expect a nice fat lawsuit come in their direction. That'll be well deserved. But I think like her winning gold, and she said afterwards that it meant even more because of the haters, because of those people, and that it made it a more satisfying victory. But her and her opponent, they were sweet about it. They were good sports. It's like there's a bubble of people who don't necessarily care about combat sports or even boxing, or especially women's boxing, but they suddenly it was a cause for them. All they were missing was some common sense and like actually looking something up, so that you can be passionate about something that's real and not passionate about something that's fabricated or distorted. And the tests that supposedly disqualified her from the Russian org disqualifying her from fighting a Russian fighter, basically, was my understanding. They never provided anything. When people said, okay, so where's the let's see the info, and they had literally nothing. So at that point, and that kind of discredited in a larger sense. So at that point, there's literally nothing there. So then you fall back on what's there. What is it? Well, this young lady, her story was out there. It didn't just get told. It's just only had to be retold because of, one, she's added to her great story, obviously, Olympic gold medalist, but also having to readjust. But the people in the wider sports community who should have been defending her and setting the record straight were people in boxing, especially people who, talk about research. If we talk about research, you got to do research. You can't just say, well, this time I'm just going to make a bunch of stuff up, or just go with the dumbest people on earth, what they're saying about it. That's like me saying like, oh, Sugar Ray Leonard, man, he was 6'7". None of those fights were fair. And everyone's like 6'7". Oh, we need a height requirement, instead of just looking up his damn height or just having a lick of sense. And that's how this felt, except it was worse because the violent rhetoric that people were comfortable saying, they don't realize they're just holding up a mirror to themselves. They're just showing people what they are, their character. It doesn't say anything about her because it wasn't based on anything real about her.
Yeah.
So I'm happy for her, but it was very disappointing, man. I don't know how much experience you had on the. I almost wish I'd never logged on.
Oh
I
no.
lost a lot of faith in people. A lot of people showed themselves out. Like they don't research. They don't actually look things up. But some of these people actually tell other people, you need to research. But if you're not doing it, don't tell people to do it and then not do it. That's a lot of people, they jumped out from behind the curtain, stark naked this last week or two. It's a shame.
Excuse me. It is. It is. No, I think you're spot on there, Random, in terms of just kind of how some of this played out for sure. And essentially, it's kind of like a learning lesson for some and many, I would say, in terms of how you go about such. And it's a matter of when certain information comes out. Yeah, if you don't know the facts, then you're really just kind of speaking out the side of your neck, to put it lightly, essentially. Real quick, shout out to Bruce Gas, Boxing Jazz, and more who dropped by. Trey Titan. Salute to you there. Trey Titan as well. Tyrone's Boxing. Good stuff, Tyrone. Appreciate you. Appreciate you again. Hey, I'm gonna do the same once I get in Twitch. I got you for sure there, Tyrone. Yeah, I'm not on there often, but I got you for sure. But yeah, salute to you there for sure. There, and then Neo Wico, appreciate you. Neo said the IBA claimed to have used laboratories accredited by the World Anti-Doping Agency for testing, but WADA denied involvement in gender verification. Yeah, interesting right there. That is interesting for sure. As mentioned, yeah, there weren't any actual details released, so that does make things pretty interesting. Just thinking about the totality of it, and at the end of the day, as we were kind of alluding to, she didn't just show up here as of this Olympics or whatnot. So she has been around, and she's not undefeated and has been blasting through competition. That's not the case either. So it does make it interesting when you look at it from that standpoint. And then, of course, the eye test from the visual of kind of just seeing that fight, especially that 46-second fight, the first one with the Italian girl that brought the controversy. I know just for me, I didn't see anything glaring in the shots that she took. There really wasn't much that actually landed outside of, I saw 2 punches for sure, but hey, you never know. And it's based on the person in there. Melissa Todd said, to be honest, I do not speak Arabic. I heard translation from her father where he showed a birth certificate. It was heartbreaking. Yeah, I think that is one of the things that really what it boils down to, because it plays out on a world stage. You don't get the sort of minuscule or limited view of things. You get the world stage when something like this goes out, and then it's spread across these major news media and organizations and other platforms. Melissa Todd said it's incredibly revealing how people will find any way to punch down on someone else to make them feel low. Yes, that is true.
Melissa with the truth. And that, to me, that was the big takeaway from it. It wasn't that they're bigots in the world or that they're racist overtones to criticism of certain people, or the fact that she wears her hair shorter is enough for some people. Like, oh, look, an athlete with shorter hair, you know what this means. No, you don't know what this means. That doesn't mean anything at all on its own. Just like people think they've got gaydar and they're like, oh, I can tell. Like, you can't tell shit. Just shut up, okay? You don't know anything. You haven't met enough people in your life to know this, to see the exceptions. It's friggin' Dunning-Kruger. People don't know enough to know they don't know. So they just come out their ass. And that's how I felt. It was offensive. Also tried to steal her thunder, man. She's been dreaming of this since she was little. Like, she started boxing at 16. She'd already been playing soccer 10 years, give or take. I don't know about how much on teams, but she'd been a soccer enthusiast for 10 years. She talked her dad into letting her box in a boys' sport. An irony of ironies, years later, right before she wins gold, she has to deal with this. She's already overcome the hurdle of trying to get her dad to let her box in the first place. She's from a rural village in Algeria, and they were poor. It was like she had to, it was 10 kilometers to where she went to train, and she had to raise the money selling bread. I think she might have sold objects, scrap metal, whatever. And she suffered. She overcame that adversity, and then people just heap this stuff on her because, to me, it was a lot easier for people to do because the little Italian girl's crying because she got punched in the world punching competitions, and but it's because she's Algerian as well. So there was racism involved, and that plays into it because they say you're supposed to look like this. Well, you already don't look like what I'm thinking about, so there's something wrong here. And it snowballed because the people who should have checked it weren't, or at least most of the people who were checking it. Because I didn't go and look at every idiot's take on it, right? But I'm pretty sure, like, even someone like Mike Tyson, like, gets all theoretical. Oh, well, if a man's fighting this, then this and this, and people were taking that kind of take instead of starting like from the point of, is this even real, and what does it mean?
Yeah,
it turns out it isn't real, so it doesn't mean anything, and that should have been enough. You could have shut that down much more easily. Now it's like, now it's a criminal investigation. This is as far as who were propagating these lies, and if there was a concerted effort to do it. It's very, very ugly stuff. It's a real stain on sports in general, but especially on combat sports specifically, because men and women have actually fought in combat sports, MMA, kickboxing, probably in boxing as well, but definitely in MMA. There's highlight on YouTube. No outrage from these same people. They don't actually care if men are hitting women. You bring up Carlos Monzon, an absolute scumbag, violent to women, like horribly violent to women. You bring him up on the same forums and pages, and they'd be like, one of the greatest middleweights ever, this and this. They're not like scumbag who's violent to women who should be burning in hell for the religious. That's not their point. So it's, like I said, people revealed what groove they were really on. And it wasn't a competition guideline, because those discussions have already happened, and those same people didn't have that energy. Where people put their energy is very revealing, I feel like.
100% they're random. I agree. And I think that, these are the type of conversations we need. So salute for all those here once again. 86 Boxing, Random Acoustic Talks, Random86. That's what we're going to call it. We're going to call the series there. I like the ring of that right there, Random 86. You know what I'm saying? And I put that in the title right there, Random 86. But anyway, so these are the type of issues we need to talk about. We talk about history for the most part, and we do that often. And this is going to be something that shows up in the annals of history, no doubt about it. We look a number of years from now, just because the story has carried so much weight. And of course, as Imane Khelif's name continues to be involved in the sport of boxing, this is always something that's going to be a shadow that is there. It's going to be attached, and it's going to follow her. And that's kind of one of the situations where some of these types of things, especially even if it's wrong, even if it's not the correct information, it tends to follow individuals. And so those are the types of things you should think about before you start to blurt out certain things. And regardless of the situation, it's not everyone. There are some who chose to not make comments and just kind of wait until they saw what the situation was. But, there are always those that you can consider sort of opportunists who are just going to jump on any headline that they can see. And ideally, that's not what you want or need to take as kind of fact news or any other form of information, especially if it isn't credibly researched, if they don't really know the true issues and underlying aspects at hand. But we're going to do what we do to provide the information that we can, and hey, we're not shying away from it, and we wanted to have this show specifically to cover such. As a matter of fact, Random and I have been talking about connecting, and this was a good point to bring up. They're actually suggested by Random, and I said, no doubt about it, sign me up. I'm 100% on board with it. And of course, we are here, folks, and I appreciate you, Random, shedding light on such. And hey, I appreciate everyone here, those that will be listening, who are really taking in this information. And we can continue to build from here. Boxing is one of those sports where we do build, and that will be the case here as we move forward. And I know we were kind of talking about it yesterday, Random, or the day prior, matter of fact, as far as just in boxing history in general, there are so many things that are tied to boxing that, go by the wayside in some sense. This is a sport where we have some of the greatest fighters in history, for instance, who have operated under a different name or as a different person, things of that nature, not of the same namesake that they were born, or they chose to become someone else in order to compete in a competition where they weren't necessarily supposed to be there. So you have a number of these different things. And just think about boxing in general, just the individuals and some of the cases that we've seen, some of these guys who can be praised or whatever, who are like, as far as human being standards, things of that nature, had a lot of horrible cases or horrible things tied to them. If you really think about it, you mentioned Monzo. There's a litany of the individuals in the sport in that sense, and they are propped up to a certain degree, and it continues to carry forward. They get propped up, then kind of the history is revisionist in some sense, because people only tend to latch on to what they view as that form of excitement or of interest to them. Even they will kind of X out or block out some of the negativity or the negative aspects and traits of individuals just to prop them up in some type of fashion. I wanted to get your thoughts on that. And salute to poor old sir in here. Appreciate you, poor old sir.
Yeah, that's right. And like the clickbaity titles, like, oh man, and this, with a question mark. And that even that is pushing the lie by implication. Like, when the answer is an emphatic no and has never been anything but a no, you don't need to ask the question, you need to assert the reality. But it gets more views if you put something controversial. So there are people who, they don't care about boxing at all, let alone women's boxing. They don't even follow combat sports. They just saw an opportunity for a little bit of bigotry, a little bit of this. And like, so you officiate amateur boxing,
yes,
among other things, in your wonderful work. Now, have you, as far as, even if we set aside the fakeness of the controversy, transgender athletes have competed in combat sports before. This is not new. Have you had any personal experience with that in your officiating?
Funny you bring this up. I was talking about this with my partner, and she knows this because she just happened to be there, but I hadn't revealed it. But yes, actually, I have officiated about where there was a transgender fighter competing, and she actually lost to this other female that she was going up against. And yes, I just so happened to have officiated that contest or a contest of that nature. And I will say that, at least based on the information or based on kind of my view of things from being in there, you wouldn't have known if you didn't know that this person was transgender. You probably wouldn't have known that this was the case. But yes, I just so happen to have personal experience officiating about as such. They're random, now that I think about it, or that you bring it up.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And like someone's like hormonal makeup, which is part of the, the fact, one of the factors. Guys, if you don't know, if you see a boxer and he's got the square ass jaw and a butt chin, especially like a pre steroids, widely available steroids era boxer, and he's all super ripped, his nipples poking out, he's got high natural testosterone, which is a natural advantage due to body. It's not, combat sports aren't fair. It's about who can win the competition under the rules provided, but it's not like everyone starts from a blank slate. People celebrate natural advantages all the time. People were bringing up Michael Phelps. He's got like double jointed ankles and a monstrous wingspan and he doesn't even produce the same amount of lactic acid. He produced like half the lactic acid of a normal human. He's got all these built-in systems that are actually helping him when it comes to swimming competition.
Yeah.
But people don't, double jointed ankles. Oh, he's not even human. Like this, what kind of animal is it? People don't have the same level of outrage because it doesn't trigger other bigotry not related to the real issue at hand. And I think that's what happened here is people just saw an excuse and then they couldn't hold back. They couldn't, some people didn't even want to look up what the truth was, because way more fun to just bathe in outrage and vitriol instead of just knowing what was happening. And for me, everyone has their own threshold. Like there were a lot of people doing like real half-hearted apologies or oopsies and stuff like that, or like, oopsies, I slandered this person in the international press and all that stuff. For me as a researcher, I'm like, I don't have time for that. So I've severed a lot of relationships over this, because you don't always know who the bigots are. You don't always know who's got a messed up personality going on. But once I find out, man, I got friends from every walk of life and all over the world. I'm blessed. I don't have room for shitty people. So for me personally, that was enough for me. Other people, they say, okay, you learned your lesson, this and this. That's fine too. But for me personally, I was like, it's a pretty harsh red line when, especially with the racist overtones that were. And I'm not speculating on that. A couple of people I messaged privately to tell them it was all debunked instantly.
Yeah.
Oh, well, the little Italian girl and this. I'm like, I see you.
Oh,
I see you. I see what really got you going. Just an excuse, you know? But then those people look like idiots. At best, they look like idiots. At worst, something far more malevolent. But it's certainly an embarrassment. And the people who know the sport are supposed to push back against the wrong information, because people outside, it's easy to construct a house of cards that triggers someone if you accept the framing of framing the debate, so to speak. Well, is this fair or is this not? Well, if that's not even the case, the thing that's supposedly being weighed, then that's not even an equitable discussion on the merits. It's just made up fantasy. And fantasy is the polar opposite of research. And I think a lot of people owe it to the athletes to know what they're talking about, especially if you're going to get really worked up about it and all up in your feelings about it. Know what you're talking about so that you don't end up like this, where the most prominent voices slinging hate at her are now under criminal investigation, and they're definitely getting sued. I mean, the best defamation lawyers in the whole planet are probably lining up to represent her. Who are the people they're going after? J.K. Rowling, some of these Fox hosts, the Boston Globe, the Daily Mail. These are heavy hitters. Joe Rogan, maybe Mike Tyson, like all these people who just, who knows who will actually catch the wrath. But a lot of people find themselves this week in a very actionable position, and it's their own fault. Because I didn't put myself out there like that, because I just went and looked it up. I was like, oh, okay, good luck to her. And then I started cheering her because people are cheering against her over a lie. And a lot of the world, I mean, like I said, not on Facebook so much, because even after I told people that shit was over, some people are still calling her man and this and that. It's not cool. But on Twitter, like the whole world is rejoicing in her victory over this adversity in general, but also this. And she got like a presidential reception when she went back to Algeria.
Awesome.
I mean, she's getting, she's one of the darlings of world sports now, but it's somewhat unfair that this was part of the way she achieved that, because it would have been incredibly inspiring already to get a gold medal at welterweight, with coming from a little rural village and not even being expected to box. Like, you're a girl, why do you want to box? So it's pretty incredible. Even her playing soccer wasn't necessarily entirely uncontroversial.
Yeah, right.
It's a very rural place she's from. It's not like, oh yeah, she's from Boston, she did this, then she switched to that. It was a little more involved than that. She went through a lot. So she used to be credited with amazing resolve and mental toughness to come through that. And that's like the essence of combat sports to me, man. Triumph over adversity. And then the opposite of that would be this Italian girl who did apologize, I think, after. I don't know if it was half-hearted, but crying because you got punched in the face. You got punched in the face in the face punching world competition. The amateur face punching competition is what, like, that's and then some people are still on about it. Like, they don't even know what boxing is. They're like, oh man, I can't even do it. Because when people try to do memes that are that cringeworthy, like rooted in hate, it's not funny. It's just sad. And there's a lot of that still going on.
They sparred before that as well. That's another thing that ended up coming out.
That's messed up.
That they had sparred before. Shout out to Slavin in here, Slavin Ajanovic, Boz in the building there. And yes, Boz, that is the case. We're talking about Imane Khelif and the misconceptions that were thrown out there in light of her winning the gold medal, or just prior to such, where there's a lot of false information that was floating out there before the story in itself got to any form of resolution or headed in that direction. A lot of people were throwing a bunch of false information about her and her gender out there, and they were wrong. But a lot of the headlines are what took off and what caught the eye and attention of most folks. But we're shedding some light on that. Our discussion was kind of centering on that and just kind of how easy it is for some things to just take a life of their own, especially this day and age here in the social media world, and people wanting to jump on that clickbaity title or things that seem to have some negative connotation or downplaying of someone. And that's kind of what happened here. So we're kind of shedding light, having a discussion on such there as well. And I'm happy that she is getting her recognition for competing in the sport there and earning her way to the places that she has been to, and hope that that continues to be the case. You know, continue to compete, continue to do your thing. And I think that you're always going to have those that are on the negative end of things, those that are going to be naysayers, trolls, those that are going to go against the grain. It'll happen regardless of the sport and or situation. So that's just an expectation, especially from an online standpoint, because we know that can take a life of its own as well, and how these stories end up playing out. But hey, we're here to shed light on such, show our support, have this discussion. It's a part of boxing history, or will be. There's modern history right now, but it will go down in history. And hey, we'll see, as the title says, the triumph that came about because of such. I appreciate Random86 thoughts, sharing his thoughts behind such. And hey, these are the types of discussions we'll continue to have as we continue to dive in history and history in general. So we appreciate all who's shown love, shown support towards this effort here, Random. And I think that one of the things that this does is, hey, it shows that there are people out there, despite some of the craziness. There are people who are empathetic. There are people who will go in and kind of look at things for what they are, or do research behind certain things, and they'll wait and speak once they actually have more information. I think that from a journalism standpoint, at times, it's not everyone, it's not the case, but it really took me back to kind of history and how, of course, when we're diving into research on some of these great fighters of the past, some of these great fights and all of that, we can really get into the nitty gritty, because the level of information that was provided gives you a great deal of detail. But a lot of times today, it's more about that quick headline and being the first to report or drop a particular subject. And I think this is, Imane was victim of the way a lot of things happen today. You want to be the first to get some story or headline out there, despite the fact that you may not have all of the information solidified, verified, validated. And I think that's kind of a disservice to not only her in this situation, but sometimes just a lot of situations in reporting, or that are reported on in society in general.
Right. That way you don't end up like doing a 30-minute video on how 6'7" Ray Leonard, it wasn't fair that Tommy Hearns had to fight him because someone put it in a headline. You know what I mean? He was so tall. How could Tommy Hearns, someone said it, so it's got to be true because it triggered me somehow. Like, come on, man. You're just short. You just don't like tall guys. That's not a very good analogy, but you know what I mean? Like, people were like, oh, I have an excuse to just revel in hate right now. And I'm like, well, I guess it's an excuse if you're hateful. If you're not, though, I mean, it's pretty easy to find the truth. And a lot of stuff is like that. We deal with Miss 86 when you're researching the old school. And then you can, it is possible, even with limited information, 100 or more years ago, 120 years ago, it's possible to dig and infer the truth. Like the old myth that, oh, black boxers are weak to the body, but they got hard heads. They got thick skulls and hard heads. Langford, Iron Hague, the English heavyweight champ, when Langford beat him up because Langford knew how to block with the top of his head like Joe Walcott had. But Hague was just like, oh, that's what you get for hitting an N-word in the head. And he drew the color line the next day. He was all salty because his hand was swollen up double size. But no, flag boxers aren't susceptible to the body inherently. But Bob Armstrong was one of the colored heavyweight champs. He was like long, lean, and he was susceptible to the body. So
Timber Ed Martin as well.
Yeah. So tall, skinny guys. Oh, it's crazy that they're susceptible to the body. Deontay Wilder, that first big left hook that Fury hit him with in the second fight, changed his whole game. He changed his whole day. He was pumping the jab. He was trying to be a new man. Then he ate a big left hook to the body, from what I saw, and then he went back to being Wilder. And it's like, that doesn't mean anything on its own. You can't draw that out into some wider thing automatically. And so we deal with myth. Or even people, one of the favorite myths, Jack Dempsey threw that fight he lost against Jim Flynn. Well, I've researched it. I don't see any of that around the actual fight. Later, in 1920, when they're building a myth of Dempsey in the press, I saw plenty of stuff. But the day after the fight, they were like, he forgot to duck. Too busy counting his money. And Flynn hit him with an old Sam Langford trick, and he didn't know what to do. Yeah. And he learned from that. Dempsey got better. He became a finisher himself.
Yeah,
fought in some shorter fights so he could really unload on the guy early in the fight, and he had great success. But that doesn't make the myth true just because there's an instance that overlaps with the myth. That's just incidental. That's not actually supported by the broader information. And I feel like maybe that's why I felt somewhat triggered by all this hatred. I'm like, you guys not even care what's actually real? Like, what's real is my whole purpose. I'm not wedded. My ego's not attached to boxing. I have favorite fighters, but they're not like Joe Calzaghe's my favorite modern fighter. He doesn't really make my top. I don't even know where. I haven't gotten that low yet. Yeah. Totally separate issue. I love the guy, love his story, love his success. Few of his fights are my absolute favorite fights to watch, but that doesn't have anything to do with putting him in the context of the competition architecture and greatness or the strength of resume. It's a totally separate thing. And I think people, they show their priorities the way they want to express themselves over various issues. And this was one that really showed a lot of people showed themselves in an ugly light. And that's just too bad on them. They have to, and that includes people on Twitter. I saw some names in the boxing community who had to come out and apologize. I was like, oh, you are useless. Oh, yeah. You have less than no excuse. I'm only researching boxing 3 or 4 years, whatever, 4 or 5 years. I'm not sure how long it's been now, but if I can do this and you're like 40 years deep talking all this mess, get out of here. Get out of here. That's not cool. Or at least that's not the part of the industry that I associate with. I try to avoid dumbasses in life in general. I don't have time. I got too many cool people around me to spare any for dumbasses. And this is kind of how that felt, but it was very disappointing. I pulled some articles from certain pages too. I'm not condoning that even implicitly with my presence or the presence of the fruits of my research. So I'm going to, so folks, I'm gonna have a lot of articles coming up on my YouTube channel here over the next few months because I took down, I don't even know, I took down over 200. I know that. Because if the people running a group or running a page are out of line like that, then they're forcing me to make a decision. I'm either endorsing it by being there. People are like, well, he's here and he doesn't seem to be saying anything, so he's cool with it, or I have to take a stand, and I always opt to take a stand.
Let your voice be heard. No.
Yeah, life's too short, man. I want to live with some integrity and be around people with it.
No doubt about it. Hey, that's why I appreciate you right there. As Melissa Ty said, if you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for everything, something to that tune or something like that. Oh, yeah, Elon was named as well. Yeah, he throws a bunch of craziness out there for sure. But, man, Random
he's another thing. Yeah, he's a great example of someone jumping on any excuse to express their prejudice. You know, grows up rich in apartheid Africa.
Yep.
Mr. Emerald Mine here, like he grows up with every advantage. He's got black servants, I'm sure. He lives in an apartheid state. Then he immigrates over to Canada and now down to the US. And suddenly anything that'll justify the way he was brought up in his little cushy life, his little apartheid life there, he jumps on it because he's like a man baby. He can't even take care of his family. Not all of his kids or even want anything to do with him because he's a horrible human being. But some people will take him at face value, like he's just asking questions. Like, no, he isn't. He's admitted to being on drugs. I forget what the drug is, but he's like, oh, it's therapy. Okay, big guy. It's the same kind of therapy celebrities and rich people have been able to get a hold of with a doctor shopping forever. Get out of here with that. He's just a bigot, a drug-addled bigot. And I hope she sues him into the ground.
Oh, yeah.
Into the ground, because that's dangerous. And, you know, with him spreading misinformation on Twitter,
yeah,
I'm not calling it the other name. It's Twitter. The other one sounds like a porn site. That ain't cool. It's on Twitter. It's like you know, right now the EU or in England, they're talking about, well, we might have to arrest people for spreading hate. You know, like the internet anti-hate laws. Like maybe in America, there's a certain set, but if your website's everywhere, you're overlapping with some other jurisdictions there, and so he's not out of the woods yet on his misinformation.
Oh yeah,
and
it's for sure.
But for normal people, all they gain or lose are clicks on their website or credibility with the people around them. And that's what a lot of people gave up, is credibility, to be like, I'm an authority.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's such an easy thing to debunk. It's like, well, you're obviously not, or you were just too lazy now because it's a North African girl. Yeah. Would you be that lazy if I told you Marciano, you know, was really 280 pounds? Right. And that he had like a special condition where the density of the bones in his buttocks were heavier. So he was 280 and everyone lied about it. Would you believe it? Or would you just go be like, nah, dude, that's what that feels like to me. It's so easily debunked. It's an insult to people who bother to read anything.
No, I feel you for sure. Yeah, no doubt about it.
You're giggling. You're trying to picture Marciano with about 100 extra pounds in his buttocks.
Oh,
big bones.
Right. Oh yeah, no, with you there, Pearl, sir. It's not an issue. Men and women's amateur pro sports is not coming or even an issue currently, only gaining traction because, in my opinion, ignorant people on social media have ears of a lot of gullible people. No doubt there, Pearl, sir.
Preach. Preach.
That is the truth there for sure.
That's the truth. Our reactions to things say a lot about us. It says as much about us as it does about the topic, how we discuss something and what we consider valid enough to even discuss.
Shout out Greg as well. Greg Murren, appreciate you dropping by there, buddy. But yeah, facts there, Puro Sir. Hey, yeah, be sure to give him a follow there. Puro Sir. Hey, be sure to give him a follow there. He's got a YouTube channel as well, doing his thing there, folks. If you're on here right now, give Puro Sir a follow for sure. Show some love, baby.
What's up? It's nice to see some sensible comments and a lack of stupidity. But I know 86, you're into the history, and you're not a judgmental person, and you don't anchor your toughness on bigotry, because you were a Marine. Like, you're a tough guy. You're smiley, but I've known some Marines and Army types. Y'all are fucking crazy. Can't fool me. But you're a nice guy. You're nice about it. Now maybe you've mellowed. I don't know, but I appreciate that temperament, and you also deal with the history. Like, I'm gonna go look it up. Someone told me this, so it's definitely true, because I like the sound of it, because that's lots of lies are 70-80% truth. That's like a political maxim, but it carries over to sports, where a lot of the myths are borrowed from other people. Mm-hmm. A lot of the nicknames are borrowed from other people. How many young Corbetts have there been? There are 3 famous young Corbetts. Yeah. There's the original Jim Corbett, and there's at least 3 young Corbetts, but there's all these young Griffo, Kid Griffo. There's multiple Sam Langfords, Joe Gans. Like, the names come back up. People borrow stuff, and the myths are like that too.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it.
Like the bigger they are, the harder they fall. People say, Bob Fitzsimmons would say that. Yeah, but Joe Walcott, who was 5'1", was a guy fighting heavyweights who said that Fitz, when he won the middleweight title, he was bigger than Jack Dempsey, non-Prowl Dempsey.
Yep.
So he might have said it later, but when right after he beat Dempsey and won the middleweight title, he turned down, I think it was Sullivan. John L. was looking to make a comeback, and he said, or it was Corbett, he said basically, well, I'm not giving up that much weight. I'll fight someone at my own weight. That was Fitz, who later became famous for fighting bigger guys. That's the difference between the myth and the reality. He wasn't always the giant killer. At one point, he was like, well, no, that's too many pounds difference between us.
Oh, yeah, certainly. Cheers there, Dan. Appreciate you dropping
by. What's up,
there.
Dan?
You caught us here on the tail end because it's 6:23. I know, Random, you're gonna have to roll out here. Hey, I might have to pop back on for a history discussion since we're in this flow here a little bit later, maybe around 7 or so. Maybe have to hop back on here. I gotta
That's what's up. I might join in for a minute once I gotta handle a few things after we get off. But yeah, I might even jump on for a second while I wait for the bus. I'm off to work. I work nights, folks.
We're gonna make it an open history discussion then. You know, done that before. Just gonna be talking boxing history in general. So all right. Man, we appreciate everyone hopping on for this discussion. Great comments, great thoughts, information shared. Random, appreciate you being here as well, buddy. And
great talk, 86.
Going as always, nonstop. So, folks, be on the lookout for 7 p.m. Eastern. We're gonna get on here and talk some random history. Matter of fact, Random86 history. Let's get it.
Yeah. Hey, and shout out to the great people in your chat for the intelligent comments and the lack of stupidity. Because everyone who follows boxing and reads any kind of comments knows it can be a bit of a garbage dump out there sometimes, but you got good quality, 86, and that's a reflection of how you approach your content. So shout out to you.
Hey, appreciate you, my man there. So hey, Random86 history talk. We're coming here at 7 p.m. Join us again. We're gonna set something up. We're gonna put it on the channel. So hope to see you all at 7 p.m. Peace.
All right, y'all. Peace.